Talking in my mic muted. YouTube, what's going on? Talking in my mic is muted. It's Mose. We back at it. Mose knows fantasy. We're going to talk about what happened week 4. I think, listen, I've been using a word the first couple of weeks called calibration, right? I'm in IT. I'm in tech. I worked with TVs before. I used to work at Best Buy. I know all about calibration. It seems like the NFL finally starting to calibrate, finally starting to get back to what it's supposed to be. We're going to take a look at what happened in week 4. We're going to talk about some things for week 5. And we're going to get y'all on up out of here. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sorry, Mose couldn't be here, but he doing the Mrs. Mosley thing right now. You know, they're out doing, they're enjoying Valentine's Day is what I was trying to say.
I got you.
Y'all the worst.
You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. Mose know it all. Mose know it all. I guarantee real takes, ain't no faking that at all. If you don't know, you gon' know. Mose knows, tune into the show. Not a game, nitty gritty, Reddick go committee. Mose should be the CEO. 2 solid, 2 real, 2 100. I'ma keep it real when you don't. Just that real gold talk. 24 karat words. San Francisco 49er fam. Realest squad on the earth. The 5 God, number 5, taking us to 6. Young killer Trey Lance. New era, new season. Mose got you covered. Go ahead and subscribe. 2022 this year. Got a whole nother vibe. Mose know it all. Mose know it all. Mose know it all. Tune in for the vibe. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing, you don't know nothing, but I know that. Mose knows.
Back at it, and you know this. Let's get through some particulars real quick. Like, comment, and subscribe right here on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for those who are tuning in, who will tune in live, who will watch after the fact. Listen, throw a thumbs up on this video, throw a comment down below, hit a subscription, become a part of the Mose Knows fam. Once you're part of the family, I love you. There's nothing you could do about it. Listen, I understand that my social medias was a little bit confusing. Some had dots, some had underscores. I went through that. We just made it one thing. Twitter and IG now should be What Mose Knows. No dots, no underscores, flat out. What Mose Knows. WHAT, MOSE, KNOWS. What Mose Knows. That's it. No dots, no underscores. Twitter and IG should all be the same. You can shoot me an email. If you don't want to use those 2 channels, this one still has the dots, but it's email and it's a little bit different. What.mose.knows@gmail.com. That one still has the dots. Didn't change that one. Not going to go through that. It was easier to do it for the social media channels. TikTok, I'm gotta double check if I changed TikTok too. I've been doing a lot. A lot's been going on. Let me see if I changed my TikTok. No, I don't want the sound. I just want to check that. I think I got rid of the underscore. So no underscore in TikTok. Let me update that. Let me hide that. Let me get rid of the underscore. There is a period at the end of this one. Save that. Boom. Just Mose Knows. No underscore. So Twitter and IG. What Mose Knows. One word. Spell that out. TikTok. Mose space knows period at the end of knows. Boom. You can find me on all social media channels. Hit me up. Get in contact with me on either one of those. Let's jump in. We got top performers as we normally do. I'm really starting to love this segment because it's really starting to show and showcase some names that we don't see often. You know, we have some new people added to the list that have not been on the list before, a few players who have been on this list already. But I love showcasing all the different talent the NFL has. Listen, there's 32 teams in the National Football League. These are the best 1,500 players in the world at this sport. So it's good when everybody can get their shine. So let's get this added to the stream. Top performers, as always, we start with our quarterbacks. Our top performer this week is Jared Goff at quarterback. 26 of 39, 378 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He did have 1 carry for 1 yard. He got like 0.1 of a point on that one. Total fantasy points this week of 33.2, albeit in a losing effort. If you had Jared Goff in your lineup, he definitely did you some justice. Our second quarterback is the quarterback from this same game. This game was a shootout. Geno Smith, total fantasy points this week, 31.7. He was 23 of 30 for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 7 carries for 49 yards and a TD. Geno Smith is having a resurgence right now. Did I take it on my? I think I snapped it on my other computer. Geno Smith, throughout the first 4 games, has a completion percentage of over 70% each one of those games. Each one of those games, he has a completion percentage of over 70%. When I saw that, that kind of blew my mind a little bit. Because, no disrespect, but it's Geno Smith. He's been, a starter in this league. Got drafted to be a starter. It didn't kind of quite work out for the Jets. Bounced around to the Giants, to the Chargers. Now he's been with the Seahawks, but he's been a backup. But every game this year, he's been over 70% completion. Game 1, 82.1%. Game 2, 80%. Game 3, 72.7%. Game 4, 76.7%. So this year so far, he's completed 70 on average for these 4 games. 77.3% of his passes complete. He's already over 1,000 yards with 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And I think that he is a big reason why the Seattle Seahawks are a 2-2 team and not an 0-4 team. Like even I thought they would be going into this season. I hate. Y'all know who I am. Y'all know where I'm at. I hate giving a Seahawk praise. But Geno Smith is absolutely playing lights out football. Any other quarterback not named Geno Smith will probably be in the running, will probably be runner-up right now to Lamar Jackson for MVP. And I do think that Geno should get some serious looks, and he should get some votes if he's able to keep this up. But, completing over 75% of his passes so far this year with 2 80% performances, 6 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, never a game with multiple interceptions. He's playing really, really lights out football. He was able to do so this past week against the Lions and able to get a win on the road. Shout out to Geno Smith. You're going too fast, computer. Calm down. Over to the running backs, Austin Eckler. I was happy about this one. I got Austin Eckler on my team, and I needed this 34.9 points this week. Austin Eckler, 13 carries, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns, did some damage in the air as well, 7 targets, 6 receptions for 49 yards, and a touchdown. Finally, he's been kind of slow. I drafted Austin Eckler 4th overall, so I'm expecting this type of production every single week, especially with this Chargers team and the offense that they have and the quarterback and the offensive line and weapons on the outside and the defense that they have. The Chargers been a little slow starter, but it's nice to see Austin Eckler again, albeit against the Houston Texans. Let's see if he can do this against, a little bit better competition. But I was excited. I needed that this week. Next running back on the list, Josh Jacobs. Finally, Josh McDaniels figures out how to use number 28, 34.5 fantasy points this week. Again, as we do on this channel, all of these fantasy points are from a PPR format. So 28 carries for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns, along with 6 targets, 5 catches, 31 yards. Absolutely did his thing. Raiders get their first win of the season against a division rival. And they have another division rival coming this week. So hopefully Josh Jacobs can keep this up, because we might be seeing or hearing his name again later on in this episode. Over to the wide receivers, we got Jettis. Jettis is not new to this list. This is his 2nd time on the top performers list in 4 weeks. He had 10 catches on 13 targets for 147 yards. He did not get in the end zone through the air. but he added a touchdown on the ground, 1 carry, 3 yards, 4 touchdown, 31 PPR fantasy points this week. Our second highest wide receiver is Mike Evans, 30.3 PPR fantasy points, 8 catches on 10 targets, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, albeit in a losing effort to the Chiefs. That offense was in revenge mode. They definitely had thoughts of the Super Bowl and did not want to put up the same performance. Patrick Mahomes made sure he got in the end zone against his Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. On to the tight ends. TJ Hawkinson is our top fantasy performer of all fantasy performers this week. 39.9 PPR fantasy points this week. 8 catches on 12 targets, 179 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, albeit in a losing effort in that shootout against the Seattle Seahawks. Our second top performing tight end, again, a name that you don't hear often or see often on these lists, Ali Cox, tight end for the Indianapolis Colts, 26.5 fantasy points. He caught all 6 of his targets for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, I love seeing new names, fresh faces on these lists. There are a lot of good players in this league, and any one of them can have an amazing outing each week. That's what we love about the sport of football. Our top kicker this week, Greg Joseph, 5 made field goals, 1 extra point long of 47, 16 fantasy points for him and the Vikings, who won in their game across the pond over in London. This has become one of my favorite parts of this segment. There was one week where we did not have an individual defender. And I'm only going to add individual defenders, I think, if they have an outstanding game, and if they have more than 20 fantasy points by themselves, they're going to be on this list. If they just had an outstanding game and maybe it only amounted to 18 or 19 points, depending on the type of game that they had, they may end up on this list. But individual fantasy players are definitely going to end up on this list if they have 20 or more fantasy points. And this week we got 2. Now, one, some people in leagues that have, individual defensive players likely had this guy. Another one, you likely didn't have this guy. First is Hassan Reddick. Man, what a day that he had in Philly in the rain against the Jacksonville Jaguars. 4 solo tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 2 sacks, 2 fumbles forced, and 2 fumbles recovered by himself. 23.5 fantasy points. If anybody, I'm sure there are Philadelphia Eagles fans who play fantasy football who had Hassan Reddick in their lineup. And I know for sure that there are Eagles fans that are bragging all this week about their defense and about Hassan Reddick and how they won their fantasy league matchup because of his 23.5 points. But Hassan Reddick has not been a disappointment. He didn't work out in Arizona, I feel like, because he wasn't used properly. He goes to Carolina, figures that he is an outside pass rusher in the mold of a Von Miller, maybe a little bit undersized as a defensive end, but right in that mold, has the speed and the athleticism of an outside linebacker similar to a Von Miller. Found his home, his position home in Carolina, comes back home to the tri-state. A kid from, I believe, from Camden, went to Temple, back home. When he speaks, you hear Philly all in his voice. Back home, hometown team, and he has not disappointed. So I'm excited for the player. I was excited when Arizona drafted him. Again, division rival. I was upset for us. Again, Arizona, they don't know what to do with players. Again, kind of elevated his career in Carolina and is continuing that in Philly. I'm really, really happy for Hassan Reddick. And then we have another defensive player who by themselves put up 20 points plus. That is Jack Jones, rookie cornerback for the New England Patriots. 3 solo tackles, 4 assists, 1 pass defense, 1 interception, 1 fumble forced, 1 fumble recovered, and a touchdown. That interception was a pick six. Jack Jones single-handedly tried to keep the Patriots in this game. He tried to win it for the Patriots. Ultimately, the chips did not fall in his favor. But what an outstanding game for the young rookie corner. 21 fantasy points this week. Shout out to Jack Jones. And the defensive special teams unit for the week. None other than the Hot Boys. My San Francisco 49ers. 7 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble force, 1 fumble recovered. And guess what? Our interception was also a pick six. Shout out to Huff. You see him on the screen right there, number 29. E-Man, number 4. The Predator, Fred Warner. And Mr. Nick Bosa himself. 49ers defense absolutely stepped up. Held the Rams offense to 3 field goals. Did not allow them to get into the end zone. This defense is playing outstanding. And finally, after 4 weeks, we are able to recognize them for the work that they're putting on the field. And I hope this is the first of many times that this defense will be on Fantasy Top Performers right here at Mose Knows. Let's get this off the screen. Back to me. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard. I'm trying to add my overlay, but it doesn't want to upload. So I'll just pull it up on my phone. Let's talk about what Mose is doing in fantasy football right now. Let me pull this back up. So y'all know my frustrations. Mose was sitting at 0-2. Even after scoring the second most points in my main fantasy football league. Shout out to the NGNT family. Shout out to all of the 14 owners in the Nitty Gritty Niners Fantasy Football League. But Mose is 5th in the rankings. Mose is 5th in the rankings. We moved up. We 5th in the rankings. And we could be, if I was 3-1 right now, I would be number 2. Because right now, I have the second most fantasy points scored. But it's so close. It's so close. So the most fantasy points scored is by a team called Can't Get Right. Whoever the owner of Can't Get Right is, he has 509.52 fantasy points scored. Guess where Mo's at, y'all? I'm at 509.48. 0.04 behind the league's leading scorer. So my team is doing the right things. His team is 3-1. My team is 2-2. Again, I feel like I was just unlucky. I drew the reigning champion week 1. She scored the most points. I scored the second most points. Week 2, they scored the most points. I scored the second most points again. So Mose is doing all right. I'm doing all right. So we 2-2. We got a 2-game win streak going. Let's see if we can extend it. So last week we beat Trey Area. Let's see. Is Fernando in the chat? I mean, Brandon in the chat. There you go. What's good? What's up, Mose? Good game. I suck in fantasy. Nah, bro, it was close. It was close. I mean, I don't know why you didn't take out Alvin Kamara. I think if you would have took out Alvin Kamara, I mean, it could have been closer if you put in Corey Davis too. But you would have had to take because Kamara was your running back. Who's your flex? Tyler Boyd. I mean, you might have been able to win it. You take Kamara out, put in Mark Ingram, and then take Tyler Boyd out and put in Corey Davis. Listen, I mean, listen, that's how I go. And listen, I could be number 1 in points scored. I started Noah Brown over Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown put up 20 points. Drake London only put up 3. I started him over Jerry Jeudy because I know Jerry Jeudy was a little iffy. Jerry Jeudy put up 15. So, you know, I could be blowing the points game out of the water. So sometimes my decision making isn't 100%. But again, that's how fantasy goes. So, yeah, man, good game, bro. Score was 122.42. to 101.92. So great match with Brandon. It was kind of close. It was teetering on the edge. Thankfully, the Rams defense couldn't stop our 49ers. And thankfully, who else I got? No, that was so we kind of squared off at the quarterback position. Brady and Josh Allen. Austin Eckler, like I said, he did me justice. Breece Hall has been a consistent performer for me. 15.5 points from Pat Freiermuth. So we did pretty good week 4. 122 points. I got to see what my average is. Let's do that. What is 509? We're going to do some quick math. Grab my calculator. 509.48 divided by 4. So we averaging 127.37 points per game. So we making it do what it do. Let's see who else we got in the chat. Lake City Fresh. Y'all heard the intro. Y'all heard the intro at the beginning of the show. That's the homie. Appreciate you. Amin the Dream. What's going on? I traded DK and Lockett for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Is that a good or bad trade? I would say I would say it's a good trade had it not been for Amon-Ra getting hurt. And I know that he hasn't practiced yet this week, so I don't know if he's good for this coming week. For the long term, I think it's possibly a good trade because at least we know that Amon-Ra St. Brown is the go-to number one weapon for Jared Goff on this Lions team. But also, DK and Lockett, I feel, have a chance to heat up. And as I mentioned about Geno Smith earlier, he's completing 70% of his passes, 75% of his passes actually so far this year. So he's being efficient with the football. Now, is he going to be able to sustain that throughout the season? He only has 6 touchdowns so far to 2 interceptions. So yeah, it's difficult to say, should you have kept both of them because one week DK may go off based on matchup and another week Lockett may go off. At least with Amon-Ra St. Brown that he is the number one go-to target. Even though they do have TJ Hawkinson there, I feel like Hawkinson got more volume this past week because Amon-Ra wasn't playing. But once Amon-Ra comes back, if he can stay healthy, I feel like that's a good trade in the long run because towards the end of the season, especially when you get to playoffs, you can at least know that you're going to get anywhere from 15, 18, 21, 23 points from Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially in PPR leagues because he's that number one go-to target for Jared Goff. My dad is in the building. Pop, what's going on? Thank you so much for tuning in. Brandon says Kamara decided to be out day of the game. I know you got to watch that waiver wire, and that was probably a little bit tougher for you too, especially if you didn't get up at 9 o'clock, 9:15 to check the injuries for that game because that was the London game. So that game started at 9:30 in the morning. So listen, I was sleeping when they decided to say, look, well, listen, just as some, back and forth friendly banter, I am so appreciative that you were asleep and couldn't update your lineup. Those are the breaks, man. That's just how it goes. All right, last segment before we get on out of here. We got to get prepared because, again, tonight is a double header. So stay tuned. Go get your little late night snacks, your little popcorn, your little ice cream, whatever it is that you get. Go get your late night snacks and tune back in with us at 9 o'clock. Myself and Jesse, we will be doing a quarterly review of the NFL season so far. But we are on to fantasy subs. We're on the fantasy subs. Who we starting, who we sitting. So, again, let me leave that up. This is the last week. Week 5 is the last week that all 32 NFL teams will be playing. Bye weeks start next week, week 6. So there will be a lot of more in-depth content then, because there are guys who won't be playing and you need to find a solid substitution for them. So this week is just purely based on matchups, history so far, what folks have been doing. So for the quarterback position, let me put my little notes up here. For the quarterback position, I would look to start Geno Smith. If you need to find another quarterback to start, if your quarterback is injured, or if you don't like the matchup, I really do like Geno Smith this week. I think he has a favorable matchup. Let me pull it up. Let me pull up the schedule. I think he has a favorable matchup in the New Orleans Saints, and here's why I say that. The Saints right now offensively are not able to move the ball. If Alvin Kamara comes back, that could change, but he may be a little rusty with his injury. Jameis Winston also is looking a little shaky. So offense isn't able to sustain, and when the offense isn't able to sustain, that kind of wears down that defense. We saw what the Vikings were able to do to them, and Geno has just been efficient. And this kind of goes back to a means question. Is it a good trade to trade both DK and Lockett for Amon-Ra St. Brown? Maybe not this week. Again, I feel like in the long term, that's probably a safe bet. But in the short term, maybe not this week. But then you also have a pick your poison. So you may start DK, but then Tyler Lockett goes off. And I think this could be a week where Tyler Lockett does go off. I think Marshawn Lattimore, he's one of the top corners in the league. He's probably going to follow DK Metcalf all over the field. That doesn't mean DK won't get his volume, but that means it may be a little bit less because Geno Smith is probably going to look to other areas, and that's probably going to open up a lot of things for Tyler Lockett. But I think Geno Smith can be successful, again, with the track record that he's on so far. Every game completing over 70% of his passes. He's been efficient with the football. And now the Seahawks are able to run the ball with Rashad Penny. So if they're able to control the clock, keep that defense on the field, wear them down, I think Geno can be successful. And then he was able to use his legs last week, as you saw in the top performers, 7 carries, 49 yards, and a touchdown. So if you need an option at quarterback, I'm not saying he's going to have another 30-plus performance this week against the Saints. But if you need a solid starter, if you're iffy about the starter that you have, or if your quarterback is injured, I look to start Geno Smith. Quarterback I'm sitting, Kyler Murray. I don't care that Arizona's at home. Arizona has been too up and down and inconsistent for me, and they got Philly coming in. Philly's hot right now. That defense is absolutely crazy. Do you think Hassan Reddick is not going to want to take it to the Arizona Cardinals? They didn't treat him right. They didn't develop him right. He goes to Carolina, figures out who he is. Now he goes to Philly, and he's carrying that on. So I think it's a chip on his shoulder. He wants to go back to Arizona and say, this is what y'all let go. Y'all got rid of me, and this is what y'all got rid of. Congratulations, you played yourself. But besides that, Arizona hasn't showed a proficiency to run the ball outside of Kyler Murray scrambling. Eagles defense is shutting down the run. That secondary is playing lights out. Even the linebackers are playing better. I'm sitting Kyler this week just because I don't expect him to go off against Philly. Maybe some garbage points, but nothing too exciting. Running backs, I have 2 for each. I got 2 starters for running backs, and I got 2 for 2 starters and then 2 sits. My first starter is going to be Josh Jacobs. Vegas goes to Kansas City on Monday Night Football. I do believe that Josh McDaniels has a blueprint of how to beat this Kansas City team. I think he figured out a way to incorporate and to use Josh Jacobs in the running game this past week against Denver. And I would only think that he was going to continue to try to follow that formula, right? Is it going to be at the same clip? Probably not. Every team watches film. I'm sure Kansas City is going to come in with the mind to stop Josh Jacobs. Is Josh McDaniels going to find a way to scheme it up to, one, be successful in the run? And even if he's not successful early, is he going to stick with it? But I think he can, and I think he's going to need to if he wants to keep up with this Kansas City Chiefs team and get a W. So I think you can start Josh Jacobs here. The Raiders always seem to play the Chiefs good. Again, it's a division matchup. And again, I think Josh McDaniels is trying to is finally getting into a groove and finding his stride. One of the things that is going to help his quarterback, Derek Carr, and the weapons that they have is a consistent running game. Running back that I am sitting, Christian McCaffrey. Again, I understand, especially in PPR leagues, he offers you versatility by catching the ball out of the backfield. He's going up against the San Francisco 49ers. He's not going to have a great day. He's definitely not going to have a great day running the ball. Most of his points are probably going to come from the pass. But for him to have any meaningful day, he's going to have 7-8 catches plus 100 yards receiving and a couple touchdowns. I do not think that is happening against my 49ers defense. So if you could help it, if you got somebody else that on your roster that you could slide in there, maybe in a flex position, I'm sitting CMC. This one is unfortunate. It sucks what happened to Javonte Williams. But if you need a starter at running back or in your flex, obviously Melvin Gordon is the option because now he becomes the number one option at running back for this Denver Broncos team. It is the unfortunate reality of fantasy football and the NFL in general. Players get hurt, and it's the next guy up. Melvin Gordon was already featured in a running back by committee, dual running back style of offense there. So Melvin Gordon could be an option because he is the number one back now. Another second running back that I'm sitting is James Conner. Again, Philadelphia's defense is stout against the run. I do not see James Conner having a good day at all. Wide receiver that I'm looking to start, I talked about it a little bit earlier. Tyler Lockett. I think there's going to be a battle between DK Metcalf and Marshawn Lattimore. I think for Geno Smith to be successful, he's going to have to find Tyler Lockett early and often. That means a lot of volume, a lot of catches in PPR leagues. He's going to get some yards. Hopefully he can get in the end zone and add to that. Wide receiver that I'm going to sit is CeeDee Lamb. Here's why I'm sitting CeeDee Lamb. And this is purely off emotion, right? Here's why I'm sitting CeeDee Lamb. It seems like when Jalen Ramsey gets embarrassed, he comes out the next game and has to remind us that he's him. I love Jalen Ramsey. I love him as a player. I love his attitude. I just think it's funny that like he has to get embarrassed first, and then he has to remind us that he's him. So he gets embarrassed by Stephon Diggs. The next week he has to remind us, I'm him. Well, he just got embarrassed again this past week by Deebo Samuel. So I think Jalen is going to have to come out and remind people again that he is him. So what does that mean? That means CeeDee Lamb probably going to get the claims. It just seems like that's the pattern. And I've come to learn that in the NFL, it's no coincidence. Jalen gets embarrassed, he clamps somebody up. Jalen gets embarrassed, he clamps somebody up. So that's just the natural progression. That's just the natural progression. Stephon Diggs embarrasses him. Jalen Ramsey puts on the clamps. Deebo Samuel embarrasses him. What happens the next game? You remember the thing in elementary school where you had like a list of stuff and then you had the blank one and you had to figure out what comes next? They usually did it with numbers. Like when you were learning even and odd numbers, it would be like 2, 4, 6, blank. Like what comes next? Or like the pattern one, like triangle, square, triangle, square. What comes next? That's the pattern. He gets embarrassed. He's him. He gets embarrassed. Obviously, the next pattern in the succession is CeeDee Lamb getting locked down. So I would sit CeeDee Lamb this week because Jalen playing with a chip on his shoulder. If we start in tight ends, here's the thing. Last week I said sit Kittle, and I was right because Kittle did much of nothing. We had to keep him in because we had to help our offensive line block Aaron Donald. This week, I think you can start Kittle. If you sat him last week, this week, I think you can start him. Carolina defense is solid. Linebacker core is a little bit shaky outside of Shaq Thompson, but there's no Jeremy Chen, I believe. I believe Jeremy Chen is injured, and he won't be playing in this game. Jeremy Chen, 6'3" safety with like 4.3 speed, does everything. Dude's an absolute monster. But he's not playing, which means he's not covering Kittle, which means Kittle might have some opportunities in this game, especially on the road, us coming from the west to the east, playing Carolina on the road. Kittle could be a security blanket for Jimmy Garoppolo. I would start Kittle this week. And there's a theme here with the sits, and I don't know why I'm showing the Philadelphia Eagles so much love, but I'm sitting Zach Ertz. And I'm sitting Zach Ertz because, again, this Philadelphia Eagles defense is playing too good football. Like they're absolutely, the linebackers are playing out of their mind. Nakobe Dean, TJ Edwards, and then they have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He's definitely very high risk, high reward. But one thing that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson can do is guard tight ends, except for George Kittle. But he can guard tight ends. I think they find a way to shut down Zach Ertz. I think they find a way to shut down a running game in James Conner. I think they find a way to shut down Kyler Murray. I don't think this Arizona Cardinal offense is going to be able to do a lot of anything just because this Philadelphia Eagles defense is playing lights out. And maybe they prove me wrong, but I don't think they're going to prove me wrong this week. I actually saw – I might have it. Let me check. I saw a meme, and I think I saved it. And again, a lot of this stuff is not coincidence. So, and I mean, some of it is a reach, but it was pertaining to the Eagles, and there was somebody that was formerly on the Eagles in some capacity that have been on all of their opponents this year. And they have the Grim Reaper. I'll show it to you. They have the Grim Reaper going to each one of the doors. So week 1, they played the Lions. They got Deuce Staley at that door. Week 2, they played the Vikings. They got Jalen Reagor at that door. Week 3, they played the Commanders and Carson Wentz. Week 4, Doug Peterson and the Jaguars. Now week 5, they play the Cardinals and former Philadelphia Eagle Zach Ertz. And it just so happens that there was a former Philadelphia Eagle in some capacity on all of the Eagles' opponents so far this year. And that's the baby that's crying. I don't know why. And then now their 5th opponent has another former Eagle. Does that mean they're going to go 5-0? Probably not, but it doesn't seem like a coincidence to me. So take that for what you will. I'm sitting Zach Ertz this week just because I trust that Eagles defense more than I trust Zach Ertz. Shout out to my family. Kenny, what's going on? MLB GRPHLDS. I got to figure out what your name is, bro, but I appreciate you. Salute to you too. Thank you so much for stopping by. Said JJ gave them the business and yes, he did. Listen, Jettas is a problem. Now, I would say his career is getting wasted with Kirk Cousins, but I don't think it is right now because Kurt is trying to find him. I think when Kurt takes a decline, I really hope when they do decide to plan for the future and get another quarterback in there, I hope they get somebody really, really good because Jettas is an absolute problem, and I want to see him continue to ascend and just have a great career. Again, if you want to reach me, again, I updated my social media, Twitter and Instagram. The handles are the same now. No dots, no underscore, just what Mose knows, all one word. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Here's the email. This still has the dots. what.mose.knows@gmail.com. Any questions about fantasy that you have, anything that you want to run by me before tonight's game or before Sunday and Monday's games, you can always, hit me on social media. You can drop a comment below this video, and I will get to you as soon as I possibly can. All right, we're going to get out of here. We right at time, about 45 minutes. This is perfect. Let me get ready. Let me get something to drink. Let me revamp, recharge. I will see you all back here 9 p.m. with the bro, Jesse Naylor from Last Second Sports. We are doing our quarterly review of the NFL to this point. I'll catch you on a little bit. Peace.